Nassim Taleb spotted the financial crisis of 2008 before anybody else did. He is the author of The Black Swan. It was a groundbreaking, and still is, a groundbreaking look at highly improbable events with massive repercussions. Taleb's new book is called Anti-Fragile: Things That Gain from Disorder. It's nice to have you back with us, Nassim. A pleasure to see you.
Thanks. I'm very honored.
Tell me what anti-fragile is.
Okay.
What does it mean?
When you ask people what's the opposite of fragile, they're going to tell you solid, robust, resilient, adaptable, all that stuff. That's not true. Anti-fragile is something that gains from disorder, not something that's safe. Something that requires disorder, requires volatility, requires variability, requires some kind of stress, okay? Up to a point, of course.
Can you give us an example of
yes.
what sort of things are anti-fragile?
I mean, I started my life as an option trader, right? And for a long time, I thought of nothing except in terms of he's short volatility, long volatility. If you had an option portfolio that gains from turmoil, it was harmed by turmoil. So sort of like brewing the same idea for 25 years, I realized that there are applications to real life. And there's nothing organic that doesn't require some amount of disorder. Your bones, they want stressors. If you don't give steady stress to your bones, you're going to have, they're going to become brittle. The same as people go to the health club to stress their muscles, you see. Well, the same thing applies to the economy. If the restaurant business had no stressors, you'd be eating now Soviet-style cafeteria food.
Right.
And so in your book, you have basically three categories that you can put things into. Some things are fragile, some things are robust, meaning they can withstand shock, and then the anti-fragile is what can really gain from volatility and stress.
Exactly. And the economy, the problem is people misunderstand the economy. They mistake the economy as something that needs to be like the Brooklyn Bridge. Strong and robust, whereas the economy needs to be anti-fragile and built in a way to gain from errors, because otherwise you would have, I mean, it's not how we got here. Otherwise you'd have something like Soviet Russia. It's built from top down.
So we took some of the key stressors for the markets that are out there, and there are a number of them these days, certainly. And we'd like you to go through and tell us whether they're fragile, robust, or anti-fragile.
Great.
Let's start with the fiscal cliff, because it's what everybody on Wall Street is watching. Is it fragile, anti-fragile, or robust?
For me, it's a good thing, because the economy requires once in a while to be shaken and people to be scared. Otherwise, you get in trouble. It's sort of like the equivalent of a forest fire, a forest that hasn't had a fire in a long time, okay, or something. You need once in a while to jolt the market so people realize that there's something wrong and we have to do something about it. And we need these fiscal cliffs and similar situation to shake politicians
because they have no skin in the game, according to you.
That is a big problem. You know, there's some category of people who have the upside and no downside. And effectively, they have a downside. The downside is borne by us April 15, tax day. You know, we pay the bill. In other words, bankers have the upside, and we have a downside. So, and they're like long volatility. They benefit from disorder, and the rest of us, we're fragile, sort of anti-fragile. And you'd want to eliminate that asymmetry in society. At no time in the history of mankind have we had that many people in power without skin in the game.
Right. Well, I mean, there's even a sense in which politicians, because they benefit from disorder personally, by, they're able to create new laws, new regulations.
And ultimately save the day.
Right. They want society to be fragile so they can come in, save the day.
Yeah, so we have that transfer of fragility from the bankers to us, from these people. And my whole idea, but this actually became an obsessive idea for me, is how do you reestablish with very simple rules some symmetry in society and eliminate, because we have so much systemic risk coming from the fact that some people have nothing but upside.
You said Europe? Europe would be, speaking of systemic risk.
Europe is, think of the best country in the world, in my opinion, from a standpoint of fragility. The least fragile country, perhaps the most anti-fragile one, is Switzerland. Completely bottom-up, built by canton. The mayor is responsible and is ashamed when he makes a mistake, unlike someone in Washington. And the country is probably the most successful one in the history of mankind.
Do you think Europe is learning from Switzerland?
Europe, if it's becoming, the fragility of Europe, okay, is past. It's a process of breaking. and gradual and slow transformation into Switzerland. If you want Europe to survive, it's going to move into something closer to Switzerland.
How about Egypt and the Middle East? That's another big stressor for the markets.
What happened, Egypt is a prime case of what let me invent a word here, Greenspanization of something. He takes the economy, wants to smooth out every fluctuation, all right, remove every and for a long time, and of course the thing falls apart. Egypt, the policy of the Western world towards Egypt by propping up Mubarak to have stability, quote unquote, was a kind of Greenspan stability we had, that pseudo moderation.
Right.
So things were brewing under the surface, and now we're paying the price after 40 years of Sadat and the other fellow. So now we're going to have to pay the price. What's going to happen? We don't know. Nobody knows. Even the players don't know. We still don't know. It may, I don't think we're going to move to democracy overnight.
Right.
We're going to have turmoil. I really don't know what's going to happen, but that's the price. It's identical to the trying to eliminate the women bust through continuous monetary policy to stabilize. Over-stabilization of something makes it weaker. That's what we have in Egypt.
All right. So the key message is you need volatility, you need stressors in the system, and you need companies and you need markets who can survive those stressors and thrive by them.
Exactly. We need to encourage people to take certain classes of risk. We need more small fluctuation and fewer big crises. And in fact, what we have is the exact opposite. Things are smooth, but with big
Just very quickly, you said 4 rules. Can you give them quick to us?
Remember, the first one is the economy. Don't mistake the economy. The economy is more like a cat than a washing machine. The second rule is small is beautiful because it's less fragile, decentralized and small. The third rule is skin in the game to make sure that nobody's anti-fragile at the expense of others. And a fourth rule, I have like 6 or 7 rules, so let me pick one at random. A good rule is that...
by anti-fragile, is that...
okay, no, a very important rule is to make sure that bailouts help individuals, not companies. In fact, we have the exact opposite.
Great.
The whole structure of bailout is now... we're going to have social unrest if it continues.
That is a great place to leave it. It's a very interesting and thought-provoking book.
Great.
Nice to have you back with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks.
Pleasure to have you as always. Nassim Taleb's new book is called Anti-Fragile, and I think it's going to be a bestseller, Ty.